So, if you work in technology at all and been keeping up with the news, you probably heard the term Log4j. What is Log4j or Log4Shell? Well, today we have a very special guest with us that's going to explain what it is and how to keep yourself safe after this. Welcome back, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Bearded IT Dad, where we give you advice and insight on how to grow your career in the IT field. Today, we're actually going to be talking about the Log4j vulnerability and really get into the details of what it is and how to protect yourself. And to do that, we have a very special guest. You might know him from his work with Hack5, Mr. Rob Fuller. Welcome on the show, Rob. I appreciate you taking the time to come and talk to us about the Log4j vulnerability out there right now.
No problem.
So, if you wouldn't mind taking a brief moment and kind of introduce yourself, let people know what you do and your background.
Oh my gosh. I've worked for companies large and small. I've mostly been offensive security, but I've done my time as an incident responder. I've worked for big companies like General Electric and small companies like I guess Rapid7 isn't a small company anymore. It used to be. um, and but like Silicon Valley government. I worked at the Pentagon. I worked at Uber. Like just all over the place. So I also helped out on Silicon Valley, the HBO show. I helped out and I podcaster sort of. I've been taking a very long, elongated break on Hack5. I'm trying to get back into it, but it's been rough. That's all.
Absolutely. And let's kind of just dive right on into the topic right now. The Log4j vulnerability. It's a huge vulnerability out there right now, and I don't think we've seen something really on this scale in a long time. Do you mind kind of going in and kind of giving some people more background about it?
Oh, background. I guess I'm not really the greatest person for background because I didn't even know Log4j existed until Friday, right? Last Friday.
Right.
And but essentially what happened, as far as I know, there could be better backstory. But essentially what happened was around 3 a.m. There was a tweet that referenced a GitHub repo or a gist that had a attack vector um, for sending a specific type of string to web accounts or web-based services, and then that would trigger a class load or Java. Like, there's I don't know like how the best way to explain this essentially, but like this tweet came out and then it blew up and people started seeing all kinds of different ways. And essentially, what is happening is a certain type of string is being interpreted instead of just written to logs. And Log4j is a logging library that is used in Java quite a bit, like all over the place. It seems, as everyone has found out. And so this Log4j library that everyone uses, it's an open source library that 2 developers work on, which is amazing that they put all of this work into. Unfortunately, they had, everyone misses bugs. So they missed a bug that where they interpret this JNDI loader essentially that says, hey, load this class file or try and load this thing so that I can interpret it. Just like in Bash, if you're familiar with Bash, where you say, hey, this environmental variable is what I want you to use when I say username or something like that. That's essentially what this is doing. It's just taking a string and saying, do these things on it before you write it to the log file. And that's essentially what the vulnerability is that someone can tell a logging thing, something that's doing logging, to load a class file, which is a Java compiled piece of code onto to interpret and tell it what to log, essentially. So if I, as an attacker, say, hey, I want you to load my class file from my evil website, and this class file says print 1, all it's going to do is print the letter or the number 1, then what's happening in a good sense is that this log is going to say, hey, username Bob logged in, but when I put my JNDI string with my class file, it says username 1 logged in. And the crazy thing is that this class file can be whatever you want it to be, right? It can be malicious code. It can be printing an A. It could be all kinds of stuff. And a lot of different URIs or different protocols can be used for this. So like LDAP, RMI, even something called Cobra, which I don't think people have really dug into yet. Cobra is the old version of RMI, and I haven't seen too many people putting Cobra URIs into that yet, but we'll see. But DNS is another one and such. So that's the kind of background of this, and it blew up on last Friday, the 10th.
Absolutely. And do you actually know of specific instances where this vulnerabilities has been exploited to cause malicious intent or something like that?
Oh, I
Like
mean,
real.
yeah, every company out there, people have been scanning the internet trying to exploit this thing for like a whole week, for all 7 days, and it's been really nuts because, like I said, you can actually use DNS as one of those URIs, and you can exfiltrate essentially environmental variables or any other thing that you can have that Log4j interpret. So you can say, hey, give me the current, path variable inside of this DNS request. And as long as it fits the protocol of DNS, it will come out. So to answer your question, have I seen actual attackers using these things to actually exploit things? Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Awesome. And this is really kind of, I think, been an eye opener for a lot of people, a lot of C-level people that normally wouldn't even bat an eye at something like this, or think about it. It's really opened them up to the possibilities of these vulnerabilities. And I'm sure there's been a massive patching frenzy going on for a lot of corporations. What other ways are there to really protect yourself against this vulnerability out there?
So one of the things that I think is unique about this vulnerability is that it's not a straight up patch. It is and it isn't, right? So most of the time when a vulnerability comes out, the strategy, there we go. The strategy is to find the machine that has the vulnerability through vulnerability scanning or whatever, and then patch that vulnerability. The problem with it being a library, and this is another thing with this whole supply chain stuff that you can probably talk about another time, or you already have a cast on, but is that this is a library. This isn't a software package. This isn't a you can't go apt search this library and grep for installed. You can't just say, hey, is it installed on my Windows box through the installed list of applications. This is a library that can be packaged all over the place. So and the crazy thing is, even if you don't have Java installed on a Windows server, Java can be portable. Java can be packaged inside of other applications. So this library could be in an application that you don't even have Java installed on, but it's using Java because it's portable, and then loading into an application that hasn't been changed in 20, 30 years. Well, I don't, 10 years, 20 years, whatever. I don't know if Java's been around that long. But so finding this thing has been so hard. And that's I think what has opened a lot of people's minds and eyes open to this, is that this type of vulnerability is very non-standard, right? It's not something that you can just go, tell the vulnerability management team, hey, go fix this, and they do, right? This is a hunt and search a lot of times. And for a lot of companies, the best they can do is look on all of their operating systems to find if this exists. And even that's not enough, because you have black box, vendors that you can't access their internal, software to find out if they have this vulnerability. So let's say that you bought, vendor X, and vendor X has this wonderful utility that manages a bunch of your servers, but you don't have admin access to it. Like GitHub Enterprise. GitHub Enterprise is a box that you don't have admin access to get root access to do things. And there's a lot of those types of applications out there. How do you know if GitHub Enterprise isn't vulnerable to this? It's not that I know of, but I'm just using that example. You don't know, and you have to wait for these vendors to fix things. While all the while, a attacker could be sending these strings all over the place through user logins, through HTTP headers, through emails, through SMS messages, through just having their username say that for their profile data, all kinds of stuff. Anywhere a log can be written about a thing, Java 4J might interpret it, and not even on the first layer either. That's the crazy thing. Like, you can have a box that logs to another box that logs to another box that then has log4j on it, and then it gets exploited. And the attacker doesn't have to do any extra work to do it.
That's just insane, and it's really made it a lot easier, I think, for a lot of these exploits to happen. You know, and it really begs the question: what do you think are some changes we're going to see as a result of the Log4j vulnerability? Are things going to have to be done differently going forward? And is it going to make a lot more work for the folks that are managing these systems?
So the pessimist in me says it's security, nothing's ever going to change. The optimist in me says, hey, software bill of materials, or SBOMs as they're called, these are basically a way for you to not have admin access to event. Like, let's go back to the example of vendor X. Like, I might not have access to root access to, vendor X's black box, but I can have a software bill of materials from it so that I know if, and let me explain what a software bill of materials is essentially a list of libraries and software that is used on a system or application or endpoint, right? So if I have this SBOM, I have a list of version numbers and software that is used. And so if, say, this vulnerability came out and I have log4j 2.11 in my SBOM, and I can just look at it, now I know exactly what systems are vulnerable, and it makes life so much easier. And do I see this being a vendor product at RSA in a couple of weeks? Absolutely. Do I think that everyone's going to implement it in less than a year? No. But I think that it's definitely eye-opening. This vulnerability is eye-opening. Hopefully it's eye-opening to people that say, that those kinds of requirements, when you buy a vendor product, when you ask for, a piece of software, those kinds of requirements are going to be on those legal, like statements of works and agreements in the coming years, or if not months.
Absolutely.
So one of the big things that I've been really frustrated with is there's tons of bad information out there, and not intentional bad information, just people putting stuff out that they don't understand how people will react to this. Like, when 2.15 came out for Log4j, that was the patch that came out in December, I think December 12th. That actually fixed the vulnerability that we're talking about. And everyone was moving to 2.4 or 2.15 or 2.12.2 when they could, right? And that was the big rush. And then 2.16 came out because there was a denial of service in specific configurations for 2.15. But everyone was already in firefighting mode, that when people say, hey, this one's vulnerable too, now everyone has to reset and go, oh crap, like this is vulnerable too. I have to go to 2.16 or nothing. Like 2.15 is not good enough anymore. And that actually does so much harm to organizations, because there's already a low morale because they're working over the weekend to try and fix this thing. Now they think they have to go reset down to 2.16, and everyone hates security because of it. And all of this stuff is happening, and it feels like the sand is shifting under their feet every time. So they don't want to do this anymore. Like admins and system and vulnerability management and all these teams that are making these huge changes to get this thing fixed are getting tired of security saying, well, there's 2.17 now. And there might be a vulnerability in 2.17 or 2.16 or 2.15. But people are just not taking the time to look into it any further and just trusting what they see on Twitter or on, the CV details or whatever. And it's frustrating because those are like a tweet from a researcher on the internet gets thousands of retweets or whatever. And those are decisions, or those are the things that like CEOs and stuff are making decisions on and based on. And it's really scary how much power security has when it comes to this, and how like lack of responsibility, I guess, it is when you see like those types of decision, or like those types of things coming out from researchers and them not understanding the impact they're having, or discounting the impact they're having on organizations during a firefight like this.
Yeah, that's a really great point, and I think that a lot of people don't realize. You know, it's amazing the power that social media really has on people that are making the decisions that don't quite understand what their decisions they're making. And you know, I'm kind of curious. I just want to kind of get your opinion. How do you weed through all this? Because there's tons of information coming out right now. There is
Yeah.
like it's coming out minute by minute. How do you weed through all the BS out there?
When you get new information as an executive, or as a manager or whatever, um, you have to take a step back and assess that information on your own. Now, if you don't have the technical know-how to say this is bad, this is not, you have to count on, people who are more technical than you to help you make that decision. But having a measured approach, having a step back and saying, is this true? Um, and not just taking, the 500 articles that are written by news agencies to that, this thing is super bad, or this vulnerability has another vulnerability and you have to patch to this. Like, news articles get paid by clicks, and the more clicks they get, the better. And so if they make it more sensational, it makes it better for them. Now, there are plenty of news outlets that try and get it right, but like, they're just as susceptible to, the sensationalism of social media and the security community at large as well. So if a researcher that's generally, trusted says, hey, 2.17 has a vulnerability, or 2.20 has a vulnerability, or whatever, they're going to take that and run with it. And I think that the security community and Twitter and all, not Twitter the company, but like Twitter, let's InfoSec Twitter, and on LinkedIn and all this stuff, we have to take responsibility for the chaos that we are causing inside of companies when we do this stuff. Now, do I think some of that's intentional? Maybe. Do I think that that a lot of people they underestimate their power and their ability to sway large companies making decisions about this thing? Absolutely. And I just don't know what the right answer there is for. I think that as a manager or as a leader, you just got to take a step back, breathe a little, and say, okay, how much of this is actually true? Because, like, as we've learned from years of social media, that a lot of social media is just hype and yelling and screaming at the wind.
Absolutely. And I really appreciate you coming on. And I don't want to take up too much of your weekend here. If people want to go find out more information, do you have like a trusted news source you like to point towards?
Ooh, I think Dan Gooden does an amazing job. I, for some reason, can't figure out or remember his publication. I think it's ZDNet, but I apologize if that's wrong. But Dan Gooden,
we'll figure it out.
Okay.
We'll figure it out and put a link to it in the description. But
all right, he does an amazing job. I think that Steve, what's his last name? Anyways, there's plenty of news articles and people out there that do their best to get the things right, and even they sometimes will get it wrong, or they're chasing after it as fast as they can to get the information out. Because the problem with Log4j was, as soon as it was released, it was a race between bad actors, researchers, and companies, and it was basically who got to the finish line first on, could I exploit things? Could I figure this out? Because it was so easy to exploit, because it was just like, change the string around, change the line of text around. It was so easy to exploit that it was literally a battle between, and a race between, all three of the major actors on the internet, right? The companies, and even standard users, right? If I have, a IoT device at home, I have no idea if it has Log4j on it. And it's been a race to find this. I don't think the race is done. I think there's a lot more of this race to happen. But it's been nuts. And to throw a wrench or to throw a rock in the front of companies trying their best to stay ahead of this thing, I think is just detrimental. And I don't know if there's a better word. I don't want to say it's, criminal, but like, you got to understand that this race is happening, and I think that a lot of pen testers and red teamers and researchers just don't understand that dynamic.
Really quick, is there anything else that you think we should be covering?
Oh my gosh. Yes, I think the next thing you should absolutely cover is the SAM account renaming stuff. If you haven't covered that already, that came out just the same time as Log4j, and it's just as bad. And if I can give one real quick
absolutely
suggestion to anyone looking at the I think it's called like the SAM account name bypass or reset or something like that. I don't remember the end of it, but this vulnerability has been patched by Microsoft, but it's still very much a vulnerability that you can see on domain controllers. And the best thing you can do is set that machine quota down to 0. Essentially, one of the biggest attack vectors that people have on Active Directory and Windows these days is the ability to create new accounts using that machine quota setting. And if you, as an organization, set it to 0, they can't do any of these. And especially this new vulnerability came out. So set it to 0, make your organization way better with one small setting that essentially makes it so that standard users can't make new computer accounts, which they shouldn't be anyways, and you will be much safer. So if I could offer anything to your audience, that would be the number one thing to do tomorrow.
Awesome. I really appreciate that. And I really hope I can have you on the channel again. This has been really great. You've been a wealth of knowledge, and I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks for having me. It's been great.
Absolutely. Well, if people want to find you online, can they find you on Twitter and LinkedIn or?
Yeah, mostly Twitter at Mubix, MUBIX. LinkedIn, I am there occasionally. But mostly on Twitter because that's where InfoSec Twitter is. Essentially, there's a lot of research and information that comes out there. I really haven't seen the community be anywhere else as much as it is there. So that's where I am usually.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you coming on the show. Absolutely. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. And until next time, take it easy.